Hold on, what's happening? Okay.
It's time for the Leadership Lunch Break with Joy Jackson of Speaking of Joy. Let's tune in for today's discussion with Seneca Dunmore.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Leadership Lunch Break. I'm Joy Jackson of Speaking of Joy, and this is episode 37. Hard to believe I've done so many of these, but you know how there are times that you do them and you're like, there are people that I want to always have a part of this. And this is these ladies, Miss Seneca Dunmore. Thank you so much for returning to the Leadership Lunch Break. Seneca and I always have a ton of things we can talk about. So it's always befitting to invite you back. So thank you for joining today. Why don't you tell people who have never, ever seen a Leadership Lunch Break and you being on it or anything, who you are and how you got started and all that wonderful stuff.
Yeah, so my name is Seneca Dunmore. I'm an international speaker and speaker coach. So I coach new and aspiring speakers on how to maximize and monetize their speaking business. And, got into the speaking business basically, I had some health challenges in college that turned into, being, going in for a simple outpatient procedure, being overdosed, being blind in ICU, just a horrible 9 days in the hospital. And when I came out of that, I finally told my story one day at church, and my women's ministry director was like, you need to tell more people that story. So I kept being invited different places to come and speak. And a light bulb just went off one day, like, why not get paid to speak? So I literally walked away from my corporate job in October 2014, started my motivational speaking business in 2015. And by 2016, I was on international stages like South Africa. And here we are, right? Almost 7 years later, and I'm doing it and loving every moment of it.
Good. Well, hello, Sharita McGee. She said, hello, Joy and Seneca. Thank you for joining. And I'll tell you a little bit about how I met Seneca. So Seneca is also an HBCU alum. She is an alumnus of Tuskegee University, and I am an alumnus of Tennessee State University. But my husband told me about Seneca because he graduated from Tuskegee and my bonus son graduated from Tuskegee, and Seneca spoke at an award ceremony that my bonus son actually got. And so he was there, and Stephen was like, when I left my job, well, left or exited or whatever we're going to call it, when it was over, when we broke up, right. Stephen said, there's a lady that I remember speaking that I think you should reach out to. And I was like, okay. Because, in this business, in this world in general, it's so hard to find people that will help you.
It really,
and that really are not looking for monetary gain or thinking that you're going to be competition, but really helping. Well, Seneca was that person. So I reached out and I was actually sitting in my office at work and reached out to her, and she responded instantly. And we started talking, and she had just begun a program, which I'm sure she'll tell you more about. And I was like, sign me up. What do I need to do? And everything that I needed to be where I am today, Seneca deposited ideas and thoughts and training, and more than anything, confidence. Because it's one thing to know you have a purpose or something in your life. It's another thing to be confident that you could do it.
Absolutely.
So at that moment, hey, Carlotta, it's my mama. She said, hello. She said, welcome back, Seneca. So welcome back. And so we've forged a relationship ever since then, and supporting each other on the sidelines and helping each other and jumping in when we need to. And Sharita said, oh, you're like her baby sister. Oh, she's so proud.
Yeah. Sharita and my older sister are like best friends. They've known each other since, they were kids. So yeah, I've known Sharita all my life.
Sharita is a good church member of mine. So yes.
Me and Sharita family.
And so that's how Seneca and I came to work together. And it's been a blessing. It's been an absolute blessing. So of course, I want to say thank you for your support. And even we were talking before we got started, and I told her, I said, one of the things that she shared with me, and I'll share with everybody, is people like pretty things. So that was my motivation to be more present visually than my great words from behind the scenes. And so as we're talking today, our title is really Leadership is Not Always About Leading, because so many times I think we get caught up in leadership and the title that we don't remember there's a story or a process or successes and failures that happen along the way. And that is what makes you a leader more than arriving at a leader, or even a speaker for that matter. Because as speakers, we got a whole lot of story before
right.
we get to that stage to tell our story and to share with everyone. So let me ask you, when we talk about the story, what do you find is the challenge or the hardest thing about sharing your story? And I know now we're beyond those days. We feel a little more comfortable. But if you look back, what were some of the challenges that you had that made you sometimes second guess or identify if this was even something you wanted to do?
You know, for me, when I first started telling my story, because my story came with so many bad memories, with so many negative memories, with so many triggers, I didn't want to tell the story because I felt like I had to relive all of those negative moments, right? Every time I told the story, I felt like I was triggering myself. And it's like, you know, why would I continue to, you know, verbalize something or express something that brings me all this grief and brings me all these bad memories? And that's how I thought about it, Joy, right? So these were conversations that I was having in my head. But it was the exact opposite when I really started to tell the story. When I really started to tell the story and I saw that other people could identify with the story, when I saw that people were now coming out of the woodwork, it's like, oh my God, Seneca, I had no idea you went through that. And I went through something very similar, right? I literally had a friend from Tuskegee who had heard my story and was like, Seneca, I was going through the exact same thing while you were going through it at Tuskegee. And here he is, one of my closest friends. And I had no idea we were on this very parallel trajectory. We didn't even know each other's story. So it was one of those things. I think once I got out of my head, once I stopped, you know, thinking about, you know, the consequences of telling my story or what other people were going to think about my story or how they were going to, you know, how their perception was going to change about me, then it became very liberating. And I realized that by telling my story, it was very therapeutic and it was very healing.
Absolutely. And I think I was just thinking before we got on that one of the biggest things that I don't think we tell leaders is that you need to be vulnerable. And vulnerability is something that I think many people struggle with. I'll say for me, especially, I have this walk that I just told my therapist, hashtag get therapy. I just told my therapist last week, I said, this is the most exposed that I've ever been in my life. In this space and what I'm doing. And I never would have shared some of the things that I've shared. I never would have walked some of the things that I walked if I hadn't gone through this journey, because I was sitting in an executive seat, big office on the top floor, 6-figure salary. Everything was looking up. Everything was looking great. And then for all of that to be no longer, you know, and I give glory to God that it's no longer, it was the best thing that could have happened to me. But then pull back the layers of who I thought I was and who I presented to the world as this type of person. And now to have to start over and figure out, okay, who is Joy really? What does Joy really believe? What is Joy's real? What are my pillars? What are the things that I stand for? Because I had allowed the world to tell me that stuff. So to pull the layers back and each day to wake up and have to redefine myself has been the hardest thing, to be able to say, I don't know what I'm doing sometimes without fear of people. But nobody tells you that that's okay, that you don't know, especially culturally. So how did you get to the point of confidence in the I don't know, or the confidence in the vulnerability?
You know, it's one of those things when, you know, when you're faced with death, right? When death is like right there at your door. It does something different to you, right? And hopefully most people don't have to have, you know, a come to Jesus, come to death kind of moment. For me, that's just kind of the way it happened. But for most people, I hope it never happens that way. I think, you know, Joy, it's one of those things like you just have to make a conscious decision. And again, we are still in the midst of a global pandemic. Right now, we got new variants, new strands, things getting worse, more, right? And so it should be a wake up call. Like, I've been telling everybody, I'm like, listen, if you haven't, the one thing that COVID allowed us was some space and some grace to really take inventory of our lives and really figure out what we wanted. Because like you said, Joy, most people know what they don't want. But they've never taken the time to sit down and think about what they really do want. And so for me, yeah, it was one of those things, I had, coming to Jesus moment. I had to really think about what makes me happy. What are my gifts? What are my talents? How can I exploit all of that to bring glory to God and to edify his people? Like, what does that look like? And so, and again, I think the beauty of where we are in the midst of this whole global pandemic is that it's given us time to do now a reassessment, right? Exactly. Because it's like, we went through it, then we went through a period of we were coming.
And we hadn't learned the lessons we needed to learn, so we're gonna go back. Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely. I completely agree.
And I feel like, I feel like it's part of God's grace saying, listen, some of y'all didn't catch it last year, so I'm going to give y'all another opportunity to sit down, right, and think about what it is that you really want. And like you said, and vulnerability is a part of that. Because, this whole thing has exposed so many of us, right? Absolutely. It's exposed our fears, our unbelief, all of that. And so, and it's one of those things that it's okay. But like you said, Joy, we've been taught that we shouldn't feel that it's okay, that we shouldn't say that it's okay, right?
No, right.
And it really is.
And it really is okay. And it's so people always say it's okay to not be okay, but I don't think we really understand what that means. It means that there are going to be times in our lives that we're not going to have the answers. We're not going to have it all together. And I was telling a young lady last week, she was like, well, it's just hard for me to ask for help. And I said, well, don't look at it as asking for help. Look at it as just sharing where you are, and God will position people in your life that can help you, because the idea of asking for help for many of us until we reprogram our minds is going to always be a sign of weakness.
Absolutely.
For me, as a leader, as a woman, as an African-American woman, as a wife, as a mother, whatever role you take, as an entrepreneur, whatever role you have, the idea of asking for help is something foreign, because we believe that when we have whatever title it is, that means we have it all together.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm like, leadership is not nearly about leadership. It's about your resources. It's about the people that you have in your network, because you can't do it by yourself, but we've been conditioned that we can. And so then when we realize our inadequacies, we give up.
Exactly. And because great leaders, right, they make other great leaders, right? They reproduce themselves. And if you notice, most of the leaders were like the C&D students. And people are like, well, how is it that they became the leader? Because they know how to delegate responsibility to the smartest people. They know how to surround themselves with the smartest people. Because again, I always tell people, if you are the smartest people, the smartest person in the room, you're probably in the wrong room. So you need to be around individuals who, you can learn from. You guys can cultivate each other's gift. And a great leader knows that they do something well, and the things that they don't do well, they make sure they're looking for other people to join their team. Right, because what you're doing is you're giving people a chance to operate in their zone of genius.
Absolutely.
No, I do what they already do well, and you get an opportunity to do what you do well.
Yeah, and if you're not aware of that, then you become arrogant because you think you can do it all. And you may be somewhat successful in doing it, but it's not the best because it wasn't designed for you to do. So like, I'm a content designer. I can do that in my sleep. I can design content. That's what I do. Okay. I can also make it look very pretty. I really can. But the amount of effort that it takes me to do that, I can outsource that. And not because I don't want to do it, but because I recognize that when I release it and give it to someone else, it is better than what I created, because they see the vision, they understand it. So I'm giving them an opportunity to take what I have and make it into something that really works, versus me doing it, me designing it, me preparing it, me sharing it. And I think sometimes, especially as leaders, we believe that's because we'll say this: it takes a village to raise a child, but as a leader, ain't no village.
That's right. And that's the craziest thing.
As a leader, you don't want a village. It takes a village to raise a child, but anything else that we do, we're going to do it on our own.
Exactly. And that's not true leadership, because leaders understand that you have to build teams, right? Yeah. If you're ever going to grow your business, to cultivate your business, to scale your business, you have to understand that you need a team of individuals around you. So when people are like, oh, I'm a self-made millionaire, self-made nothing, there were people along your journey who assist you, right? And you are where you are because of the individuals who, were willing to help you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's good. I like that. And I don't think we think about that. I think I think culturally, just as an American culture, we spend a lot of time with the I've done it. I've pulled myself up. I'm this, I'm that. And that's just our natural tendency. When in actuality, none of it would have been done, number one, without the grace of God, first and foremost. Right. And then secondly, without a group of people from growing up, because we don't ever go back. I mean, you have the athletes that go back and thank their mom for all the hard work, but we never think about all the experiences and the lessons that we learned along the way that brought us to this moment. We forget and we get in the moment and like, oh, look what I've done. I have arrived. But we forget, there were some times that the doors were closed. There were some times that you felt like giving up. There were times like that. And so I think, especially as speakers, I try to make sure I share that. It isn't always great. There are days that I'm like, Lord, for real, there's got to be a job opening. Like if I put an application now, there's got to be a job opening because it gets hard. It gets hard. What is one of the hardest things that you've experienced as an entrepreneur?
As an entrepreneur, you have these highs and lows, right? You have these mountaintop experiences, and then you have these valley experiences. And again, I think the hardest part is one thing that I've been dealing with, and I see a lot of other individuals are dealing with, is imposter syndrome, right? Because when you have these low moments, you're thinking like, how am I getting up here talking about how to monetize business, and I'm not sure how I'm gonna pay my car note this month? How am I getting up here?
No, absolutely.
I'm struggling, right? And people think just because you're going through those low moments that it disqualifies you to still have this testimony or to still talk about this thing. Absolutely. And it doesn't. If anything, it qualifies you more, right, to have the conversation about those things. Because again, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, you're going to have these moments and you got to learn how to just face the moment, be okay with it, right, and move past it.
Absolutely.
And understand that it's just a moment.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, mine has been rejection. I have really, I never, and I tell people this. I'm like, and I'm not apologizing for it. I was about to say I'm not bragging, but listen, this is my life. I ain't bragging. These are facts. That's right. I've never made a C, D, or F in my life.
Okay.
Never. I've never applied for a job and not gotten it.
Okay. All right.
I've never applied for a school when I was in college and never got in.
Listen, look at you. You had all kinds of wins all your life, Joy.
So that is what I'm saying. To win in areas so frequently and to have these moments where everything works for you, then when you get into a situation where it doesn't work and you've not had an opportunity to process what it means to hear a no, then you have rejection problems. So for me, because all I've ever heard is yeses, hearing a no for me is like, oh Jesus, I don't like I'm working through it. And I'm like, but even still, I'm like, do you know who I am? But also I'm now like, what's wrong with me? Because everything else has been a yes. Everything else has worked out. So if it's a no, then I'm now taking it personal. And now I'm like, oh my God, what? So I'm doing a self-evaluation. I'm really throwing the towel, not realizing that no was necessary. Yeah. And I've had more no's as an entrepreneur than I've had in my whole entire life. So it has pulled back layers of me that I never knew existed because I was always able to protect those because I was always good at stuff.
Yeah.
And so now not to be good.
Yeah. And I feel you on that, Joy, because it's like when I'm, now that I'm going through this whole doctoral process at Texas Southern University, and having this big hiccup, and I'm like, I ain't never not been able to pass, a class. I ain't never not been able to pass a standardized test, right? I've always done well at testing. And so the fact that I'm having a hard time getting past this one little hurdle because, that one little hurdle is keeping me from getting to the big thing that I want, right? Which is my degree. So I totally understand that. Yeah. And it's one of those things when I tell you, Joy, it is testing me in ways like, how I'm having to hold on to God's unchanging hand because it's one of those things like, I'm like, Lord, you gonna have to do it because if I do it right, I'm going to totally blow the whole thing up.
And that's how it is when we're in I'm learning that when I can do it myself, I'm in my own power, which God will allow. He will allow me to operate in my own power.
Absolutely.
But there are things that I cannot do that are only going to be done by him. So in my own power, if everything works out in my own power all the time, then what do I need God for?
Absolutely.
So then I get the big head. I'm out here living my best life. And that's when I become a self-made millionaire. That's when I become self-made or use those types of ideas, because I realize and I'm like, you know what? I got it. I'm doing it all on my own. We out here living. And then because God loves me so much, he'll find a way to bring me back down. Like, no, hold on, sis. Let me remind you where your help comes from. And I think absolutely. A lot of times, especially as we get into certain roles and positions in our lives, it's easy to say, man, look at all I've done. Man, I did good, man, and not really realize there were people that God placed in your life. There was God in your life. There were so many other things that got you to where you are that now you're sitting literally on the shoulders of so many other people and, being undergirded truly by the grace and mercy of God.
Absolutely. Hey, when he say not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, right? Listen, I've been one of them seasons where it's like, but we all understand that. He has a direct hand in all of that.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, what is the biggest lesson you've learned? Let me say the biggest lesson you learned. Let's just start small this year, because we're already in August. What is the biggest lesson you've learned from January to August?
The biggest lesson I've learned, Joy, is that I need to be more focused. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times there's a lot of things that we might be good at. But if you really want to scale your business right, you kind of got to be laser focused on that one thing. And again, I preach this all the time when I tell people, people don't hire generalists, they hire specialists, right? They're coming to you because they believe that you are the specialist in this one thing. Right. Okay. And so once you focus on that one thing, once you know what your niche and your ideal audience is, it's so much easy to add value and to really, maximize and monetize your gift. So you have to, that's one of the things I'm learning in this season. As this year has been progressing, God has really been dealing with me like, listen, I know you can do all these wonderful things. I know you got all these amazing gifts. But what I've learned, Joy, is that just because you have the gift doesn't mean it's the right season or the right assignment.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
That's good.
You might have a gift, right? And it might be the wrong season, and it might not be the assignment that God has you on to use that gift. So that's what I've been learning, because I know that I have a lot of gifts, a lot of talents, but God has me on a different assignment in this season that does not necessarily require that I use that specific gifting.
That is good. Because it's really good. Two things that came to my mind. So the first one, which is, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So but you shouldn't do all things. So just because I thought about that, I'm like, because like you said, being more focused. So yes, I can do a lot of things, but I also want to be in line with what God's will is for my life and for what I have to offer the world. So what I'm doing should be all things that he wants me to do.
Absolutely.
He anointed me to do, not all things because I have the ability on God's word to do all things, and I think we forget that sometimes. We forget that, you can do a lot, but jack of all trades, master of none. So you can be really good at stuff, but you're not great at everything.
That's right. You never going to be.
Yeah, but people like to hear that. Like, hey, listen, you're not like, I can sing. I do a mean background. Okay, I am a great tenor, and I sing tenor, and I can harmonize. I have an ear. I can hear it. I can sing all three parts. But let me tell you what I'm not. I'm not going to be Beyonce.
That's right. Yeah.
So rather than take vocal lessons to figure out how I can be on the front of the stage, I'd rather write the music.
Yeah.
And so you got to know what your gifts are. If that was the example, you have to know where it is. And I think sometimes, especially for me, like going through this season, really saying, okay, God, you've anointed me to do certain things. And first give me the comfort in knowing that what you've anointed me to do, there's a space for it.
That's right.
Because part of imposter syndrome, part of the enemy is to make you feel like what you have to offer is not necessary or valuable.
That's
so
right.
being mindful and reminded every day. No, there's a space for that. Even though you may see 200 other people doing it, there is a lane and a space for you.
Yeah, because nobody's going to do it like you. And I tell people that is your superpower, right? Because no one is like you. Nobody's going to have the same testimony. Nobody's going to tell it like you tell it, right? Nobody is like you. That is your superpower.
I like that. I like that. So what's your superpower?
You know, I've always had an aura. I've always had an energy, right? I've always been able to, you know, articulate my vision and get people to buy into it. So I know that's one of the things that I do well, right? And it's really truly just a God-given gift. It wasn't something like I just woke up one day and wanted to be this person. I think over the years I naturally cultivated it, right? Once I discovered what that thing is. But I just think it's just one of those things, like I have a natural energy, a natural aura. People are just naturally drawn to my energy, right? Like a moth to a flame. And I love that. And I've learned how to use that to show other people how to use that thing, which is their superpower, right? You know, like I told you, I was like, people love pretty things. So it ain't a coincidence that, you know, you have these Instagram models and people like that who are just using what they have. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as, you know, within, you know, boundaries. I'm just like, whatever that thing is for you, use it to your advantage, because people feel like, oh, well, I shouldn't do that. Or, you know, that's kind of, you know, I'm exploiting my gift, or I don't want to seem too uppity or something. I'm like, listen, who's for you is for you, right? Absolutely. Your tribe is your tribe, right? And the people who are not feeling that, that's okay. They're just not a part of your tribe. Bless them and send them on their way. You focus on the individuals, right? Who are on your team.
Yeah, because as a leader, especially, you'll find yourself investing in people that don't have what you need. And I don't mean it in a way of using, but they're not going to give you what you need so that you can move what you're supposed to move to where it's supposed to go. So we'll spend a lot of time sowing seeds and depositing in people and things and teams and circumstances that aren't really beneficial. And then we look up and we've lost time, we've lost money, we've lost patience, we've lost relationships, and we're now in a season of lack. And it's like, well, the reason you were lacking is because you were sowing in a place that you shouldn't have sown. So now you don't have a harvest, and you're wondering why you don't have a harvest. Well, because that wasn't your land to be sowing in the first place.
Exactly.
And so we have to go ahead. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, and you have to understand that, and that's so true, because a lot of people are walking around here drained, right, and exhausted, because again, you planting in the field that wasn't your field.
Absolutely.
Like you said, now that you're not reaping a harvest, now you all disgruntled and you mad at the world, right? But that was never your field to begin with.
Yeah.
Right. No, so you have to learn, right, what soil you need to sow into. And some people, and again, that's why, you know, seasons are so important, because it might not be right. There's certain people who are in your life for specific seasons. And then when that time is up, you need to lovingly, right, terminate those friendships or whatever. It doesn't mean that y'all have to leave on bad terms or that you don't like them, you know, because things might come back full circle. But you have to understand where you are. And like you said, the individuals who are equipped to help you in that season.
Yeah.
Because if not, then they just become dead weight. Yeah, they just become dead weight.
And we all say we don't want dead weight, but all of us carry it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, whether we intend to or not, we carry it. And I know for me, I'm a person of relationships. Like I would say now my superpower, I truly believe, is to be able to take ordinary principles and make them applicable in ways that most people don't think about. Like I'm a creative, right? But equally as creative, I value relationships. To a fault, I value relationships. And so I have sown in all kind of, you know, the stony ground, the fertile ground, you know, all of those. And now God is allowing me to step back and to see that all of that is not harvesting, and being comfortable with understanding that even in the sower, the parable of the sower, there was only one thing that reaped the harvest, and that was the fertile ground. So we got to be okay with also depositing out there in ways that is like, that may not come back. And it doesn't mean you're a horrible person or a horrible leader. You know, like I tell leaders all the time, if you have the same staff you've had for the last 8 to 10 years, something's wrong. because you should be depositing and sowing into your staff and your team such that when it's all said and done, they're coming to you saying, hey, I found another job. And it's not because I'm angry with you, I don't like the company. It's truly because you've given me so much information that I've grown to the degree that it's time for me to move on. And if you have the same team, it's great, because as a leader, you're doing a great job, because now your team is running on autopilot. But at some point, there has to be a shake-up so that you can see your fruit. And you won't see your fruit until the tree actually grows. So a lot of times we want to say, oh, I want to see what everybody's going to do and how great they're going to be, but you got to let them go to do that.
Absolutely. You got to let them, spread their wings and jump out of their nest and fly. Yeah. And just, and I always tell people, like, even if you look at a fruit tree, right, there's a reason why it has to fall off. And if it stays on too long, guess what? The fruit will rot.
Yeah.
So some people, right, they're staying in places too long, right? It was fruitful for that season, but at some point you got to fall off the tree, right? Exactly. Yeah, because if you don't, then that fruit will start to rot. Absolutely. So you got to know.
Yeah.
And great leaders, like I said, they make other great leaders, right? Because they're duplicating themselves. It shouldn't be that you're creating a whole bunch of followers who now have to stay with you in order to be successful. No, they should at some point moving on and creating a space for other individuals to take over those spots, right? Absolutely.
And then when you're a good leader, a good team member, leader of a team or anything, when you're really that good, then you don't have to worry about the recognition, the acknowledgement, the credit, because they will always, whether it's in a public forum, in a private setting, you've deposited something so great that they will never, it's like they'll never get away from it. And they'll always remember. I remember how, I thank God for, because they acknowledge that what I've learned, where I am, there are people that have helped me in that area, and they're able to say that. I think sometimes we get, but some people get really bogged down in making sure they get the acknowledgement, the recognition, right? Making sure that people know that they had a hand in this or this or this or this. And that's not healthy. That's not the way you're going to be successful. Is if you've got to get the glory in everything that you do, then you are really doing it for the wrong reason. Because if you've got to get the glory and you're the person that's always got to have a say in it, then and always has to have the acknowledgement, then you're not doing it for the betterment of other people. Right. You're doing it to get for yourself. You're doing it to say, look at what I've done. And that's really, like, I want my daughters, I want to deposit so much in them, but I want them to look back and say, my mom did a really good job. I don't want to have to bring them everywhere I go, say, see my daughters, see how good I did. They're such beautiful girls. Exactly. They ought to be able, I ought to see that in them without me having to ever say, Shelby and Sydney are my children.
Absolutely. And that's a great point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, go ahead, Joy.
No, that's it. Go ahead. Your turn.
No, I totally agree with that, because again, they are a byproduct of you. Mm-hmm. So when they're out here in the world, right, people are going to already see how great you are because of how well your daughters are doing. That's going to be, those are Joy's daughters, right? Yeah. So it's like you don't even have to toot your own horn, because they are a living, breathing testament of the qualities that you've instilled in them, right? Of the resources, all of the goodness that you've instilled in them. So it's like they're walking billboards for joy.
Yeah. And a good leader has that. Absolutely. And a good leader has a walking billboard.
That's right.
That's good.
That's right. Good. They just become walking billboards. Absolutely.
That's good. So we're going to switch gears. Let me ask you a question. Sure. What have you found is the biggest challenge that leaders are having right now?
Pivoting.
Okay. All right.
Pivoting. Right. Mm-hmm. And because again, when you've done something a certain way and it has worked for you all this time, right? So you've been operating a business for 10 years and you've been uber successful and things have been working out well and the business has been growing. And then you have something like a COVID-19 show up, right? And now you're like, well, damn, what I used to do is not working anymore, right? And so a good business knows that there are going to be times where you have to pivot, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to have to to change the way you do things, because I mean, nobody was expecting this. Nobody thought we would be doing meetings virtually, you know, for the next 2 years or whatever, you know. And so there's a lot of people who have had a hard time pivoting in their business because they've done something well for so long and it has worked for them, and now it's not working, right? Because the world has changed, technology has changed, right? We're much further ahead in technology than we thought we would be right now. And so that has required that everybody has had to pivot. If you're smart, right? If you're trying to scale it, you're still trying to sustain your business, you've known that, hey, I got to do something differently. And change is always hard, right? Change is always hard for people.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing that I've noticed, is that there's a lot of people who are fascinated with this idea of, I just hope things go back to the way they used to be. But guess what? It ain't never going back to the way it used to be. This is when I hear people say the new normal, this ain't new no more. This is our normal.
Our normal. Yeah. No, that's absolutely, No, that's true. I mean, I look at, and Stephen and I had this conversation. We remember times where, you didn't have to wear seatbelts.
That's right.
After a number of crashes, guess what happened? We all are required to wear seatbelts, to the degree that you'll get a ticket now for not wearing seatbelts. September 11th, remember? After that, we used to go fly, and people used to walk you all the way to the gate of the airplane, and folks used to all the way, and they could sit there, and now they can't go past security. So there were moments in history that have already shown us that when things change, they don't return, because it's been since 2011? Was it 2011? Yeah, 2011. 9/11, 2000. No, what year was the year that it happened? 2001.
2001. 2001. When 9/11 happened.
We're talking 20 years, and I still can't go to the gate. So it didn't return.
That's right.
It didn't return. So the same thing with COVID. No. We're not going to return to the way things were. Now, I think we're going to try to adjust and find ways for us to be better prepared and figure it out. But masks now are going to be a part of our lives, whether it's a mandate or not. You have a choice, and now people are going to gravitate to wearing a mask anywhere they go. It's not going to be a personal preference. It's not going to be when we get to that point. But people are looking for jobs now, and they only want jobs that are remote. Yeah. And that's it. That's it. I want a job that's remote, period.
That's right.
Or people are asking questions like, well, what is your diversity stance with companies? Because there's been a shakeup and a shift in diversity. So no, we won't go back to the way things used to be. But that gives us an opportunity to create what the future looks like. And I think we're so stagnant. But we're so stagnant now. Like, we're at the can't believe we're back here space. I believe that we're spending so much time, as a culture, as a country, we are standing here shocked that we're back here like we were, circa March 2020. And we're so paralyzed in the, oh my gosh, we're back. Oh my gosh, instead of saying, well, what did we learn in 2020 that we can apply in 2021? Because we are literally looking at 2022. And if we don't learn the lesson that we need to learn as businesses, as organizations, as a country, as families, and whatever, God is really trying to get our attention. And if we don't learn the lessons, we're going to be right back here again.
You got to repeat it.
Yeah.
We're going to be right back here again. So it's like, again, I'm telling everybody, take this opportunity to really think about what is it that you want to like, what you want to do, because again, this is the perfect storm for it. Yeah. Right. You've got more quality time at home. You've got more time to think and everything. So it's like, use this time wisely to think about it, what you want to do, and then put an action plan together to start making it happen.
Absolutely.
Because it's not. Yeah. So it's like, whether you like it or not.
Get on the bus, Gus. This is where we are. This is what's happening. And you can either be a part of it, or you can stay stagnant and watch the world go on without you. And
you have, because the world is going to go on.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is, and I agree with you. It's been the hardest years. I mean, in my lifetime, the hardest years, but it's been the most blessed, because you get to appreciate more than you've ever appreciated. You get to experience more, because now I think we're living in a time where we're experiencing from our hearts. You know, like we are really, we are coming together, whether it's on one side of the idea or the other. We are now super passionate, and we are more vocal, and not all of it's right, but now people are actually taking a stand for what they believe in. And I don't remember that, except all I know about is the 60s. You know, like we can go back in history, but this is the first time that this generation, our generation, has seen unity, I think, and division too, but unity in the way that we saw it grow. You know, we heard about it growing up. And so it's still an opportunity to make a difference, to really make a difference.
It is. It's like you said, no, we haven't seen, you know, unity on this magnitude. We've never gone through anything this traumatic in our lifetimes. Right. And so it's the perfect scenario for now thinking about, okay, well, what is it that I want? What gifts do I bring to the world? Right. How do I show up in the world now?
Absolutely.
Right? And again, it's almost like a second chance. It's really a beautiful thing. It's like you get another opportunity, you get another chance to choose how you want to show up in the world.
That's good.
Right. To choose how you want to manifest your gifts, how you want to cultivate, you know, other people and help them to get to where they are. Like, you've got this awesome opportunity. And I hate that it's wrapped in this pandemic, right? We definitely could have done without the wrapping. But
the gift is beautiful. Yeah,
absolutely. The gift is beautiful, but the wrapping, you know, is kind of crazy. But then again, you know, Joy, for most individuals, it takes calamity. It takes catastrophe. It takes something really devastating to happen before they really get on the ball and think about, you know, oh, well, I guess I got to change up how things are doing. I guess I gotta make a change, right? You know, you know, when I started my motivational speaker, I had gotten fired from the last 5 jobs that I had, Joy. And at some point I was like, you know what?
I gotta figure this out.
I ain't set up for this corporate stuff like I thought I was. You know, true. I had always had this yearning to be an entrepreneur, but it was those moments that really kind of forced me and pushed me and opened up the door for me to say, you know what, this is something I've always wanted to do. I'm going to bet on myself. I'm going to take a risk, you know, and I'm going to do this.
Absolutely. So what would you say to people who are on that cusp? I talk to so many people who are, I really want to, but I really, if I could, I would. So what do you say to people who are in that space of ready to launch, but just need that extra to get them there? What do you say to them?
You know, it's one of those things like, you know, I've always realized that I'm very different from my sisters, right? Both of them have kind of the traditional life, right? Married, kids, you know, suburbs, luxury cars, like they, you know, they're living the American dream versus me, you know, not married, no kids, traveling all over the world, right? So my life looks very different. And the reason why is because I've never been afraid of taking the risk. So most people need to know A, B, C, D, E, and F before they move. Absolutely. Show me A, I'll figure out B, C, D, and F along the way, right? And so sometimes it takes you having to just start.
That's it.
And as you start, God will position the right people in your path to give you the resources that you need to help you along the way. But it takes that you have to start, right? When he told, who was it, Abraham, listen, leave your home country, go to a land, I'm going to show you, leave everything behind, right? He had to leave behind everything that was familiar to him.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times we're so scared of the unfamiliar. Most people would settle for the hell that they know, right? Then to embrace the miracles they have yet to discover. Because the hell they know, right? They're familiar with that.
Yeah.
But they don't know what's on the other side of that door. So they're like, I don't know. I don't want to look foolish if I launch out here and it doesn't work. Well, guess what? It's a part of the process. It's just a part of the journey.
Yeah.
You got a lot of people who've launched and who have stepped out there and failed, right? Luther Vandross was turned down by like 40 record companies before he got a deal. 40.
Yeah.
We're talking like Luther Vandross, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, people like what's the lady who writes all of the Harry Potter books? J.K. Rowling. Right, turned down by like 29 publishing companies before she got her first big break. And guess what? Now she's a multi-billionaire because she was willing to bet on herself. If you want it to work, you've got to be willing to take risks. You've got to be willing to bet on yourself against all odds. I don't care if your family don't believe in you, your sisters don't support you, your husband think you're crazy. It don't matter. You right?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people who've thought, you know, Seneca, you wilding. I don't know what's going on. You know what I mean? But I've had to take a bet on myself, and I'm okay with that.
Absolutely.
I've fallen on my face a couple of times, but guess what? I've gotten back up, put my makeup back on, and tried again.
And you know how good you are. That's what people don't realize. When you have something, you know how good it is. And so it's gonna happen that, guess what? People aren't going to all believe that it's as good as you think. But if you have it and you have that thing in your hand, you can do it. And that's what people, especially now, I think people need to hear you can do it. And it is whatever, but you can do it. You got to be willing, like you said, to bet on yourself. You also got to be willing to accept that you're going to fall and that you're going to fail. And failure is not we have taught people that failure is a bad thing.
And it's not.
Failing is not a bad thing. Failing is necessary so that you can correct the mistakes, course correct, move differently so that you can. So failing is a part of the process so that I know what not to do the next time. So if I make a mistake, that I should be like, okay, Lord, thank you for letting me make the mistake. Thank you that it hadn't taken me completely out, because if you can experience the mistake or the failure, that means you have another chance to get it right. So now dust yourself off, say, I made that mistake. I know not to make that mistake again. And also that failure and that mistake is going to be a blessing for someone else. Absolutely. So like when you share with what you do and you talk to us, you can tell us what you've already done. Like you'll say, hey, listen, I've used these systems. I didn't use this one because I tried it didn't work. Well, for somebody like me who doesn't know, then to say, okay, well, I trust Seneca and Seneca says she's done this and this, then your failures and your mistakes and your challenges help me so that I don't have to walk that same path. Now, if I choose to, that's on me, but that's the beauty of betting on yourself and also making the mistakes. That's natural.
It's natural. Right. And you naturally become a mentor to those individuals who are following the same footsteps. And guess what? Instead of having to take the 10-mile road, they can take the 2-mile, right? Because you've already made the mistakes along the way. And you can show them that, hey, you don't want to turn on this road, right? You want to go here. You want to keep straight here. So and like I said, I'm grateful for the people who've made mistakes before me and who could teach me, hey, listen, you don't want to do this. And now that I've made plenty of mistakes, I can tell other individuals how not to make those same mistakes. So again, it's all relative. And it's one of those things like mistakes. We've got to remember that mistakes are not, and failure is not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, but that's what we tell ourselves. So it's just a matter of reframing the idea of failure.
I like that.
For us, we've made failure the end all be all instead of failure being an opportunity to start again.
That's right.
It's the end. Like my dad always says, you can't have an ending without a beginning, but you can't have a beginning without an end. So you can't start over if you don't end whatever you started. Right. So it's like you have to end it in order to begin. So sometimes the end is a little more hurtful, those things, but it's necessary. So failure is necessary to build character.
That's right.
Mistakes are necessary to build strength.
Yeah.
When you work out, you're going to be sore. That soreness is necessary for you to see the muscles, for you to see the way that you want to be. And I think especially as entrepreneurs, we forget that. We believe we're going to start this business. We're going to make $1 million and everything's going to be great. Because listen, no entrepreneur gets in it to be told that it's going to be about 2 years before you really make some money.
Exactly.
No entrepreneur wants to hear that. I'm going to be an entrepreneur because I've got this great thing to offer the world and I'm going to be rich. Eventually. And then we're going to redefine rich, because rich may not be monetary either. So it may be, but we are not cultivating that type of mentality. We're not cultivating that. And so people never start because they're afraid of the road that they have to travel.
Mm-hmm. They are. And most people don't want to sign up for that, right? It really separates the wheat from the chaff, right? It really separates the strong people from the weak people, because again, it's you're going to have roadblocks, right? You're going to have mishaps. You're going to have things along the way that are going to naturally discourage you. Yeah. But, you know, you got to be like the David and encourage yourself. Yeah. So, you know what I mean? You might not have people to, you know, wishing you well and doing you harm and cheering you on. You're going to have to figure it out yourself and be like, you know what? I'm going to have to be my own advocate. I'm going to have to be my own ambassador. I'm going to have to be my own cheerleader some days. Absolutely. Right? Because if you want it bad enough, you'll stick to it.
Absolutely.
You know, knowing that there's going to be some tough days, there's going to be some sleepless nights, you know, and again, that's not the part that we show, and we need to. Absolutely. We need to show the highs and the lows.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Miss Seneca, thank you. How can people get in touch with you? What do you have going on? Tell us where we can find you, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, so I go by Seneca Dunmore on all my social media, right? SENECA DUNMORE. You can see it there on the screen. So you can follow me on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. LinkedIn is my favorite platform. So
I was going to say, now tell them that, yeah. And she's got some great material and courses on how to monetize LinkedIn. So if you are an entrepreneur and you're watching this and you really want to know how to make LinkedIn work for you, this is definitely somebody that you want to follow. She is phenomenal on how to do that.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things. I'm revamping a couple of things right now, really focusing on the video and marketing piece to people's businesses, showing them how to really build their brand and business through video and photo marketing. Because again, we see that now we're in the age of, we're in a gig society where everything is moving towards electronic, everything is moving towards video. So I really want to show people how to really maximize and monetize their business using those avenues of, you know, video and photo marketing. So that's what we got going on. I'm finishing up my book. So, you know, y'all pray for me on that. Yeah. So, and, you know, I told myself, I said, I'm not even making no announcements. I'm not going to be talking about it and all that until it's done. So I'm just in that season, like I got to get it done and then I'll start talking about it. So yeah, so I got a couple of things going on, but yeah, reach out to me at Seneca Dunmore. And I look forward to speaking with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so very much for joining the Leadership Lunch Break. Next Tuesday, the Leadership Lunch Break podcast will drop another episode. So make sure that you're following on social media so that you can get those announcements. Thank you all so much for just riding with the Leadership Lunch Break. My goal is to bring some great information to you and great guests like Seneca. So we will do this again next week. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday. Thank you, Seneca.
Thank you, Joy.
Thank you for joining the Leadership Lunch Break. Join us next Thursday at noon Central Standard Time for lunch as we continue our discussions. Follow Speaking of Joy on all social media platforms or visit our website at www.speakingofjoy.com. That's www.speakingofjoye.com.